one is entitled to perform their duty. There, the word karma is used. Karma and eva nikaraste. One is karma in this case means prescribed duty. One is entitled to perform one's prescribed duty. Here it's one is obliged, but also entitled. But the entitlement to perform the duty does not include the results of the activity. And if you're not entitled to the results of the activity, but you're obliged to do your duty, then what happens to the result? The result goes to Krishna. That's karma yoga. And karma yoga is a preliminary to bhakti yoga, or the principle of karma yoga is built within bhakti yoga. Plus, the emphasis in bhakti yoga is the purpose is that Krishna should be pleased. That's the bhakti principle. And the karma yoga principle is liberation, or freeing oneself from the entanglement of the bondage of karma. So then there are two parts of that: the duty and the detachment from the results of the duty. And the detachment from the results, since there is a result. I mean, who does something without the purpose of achieving something? It's just it's a mode of passion. Its activity has a purpose, and you do something to get something, and it's something that's deployed in sense gratification that's entangling. And the principle of no entanglement is perform prescribed duty without the anticipation of result. Here's the language. A devotee must execute his prescribed duties, which are glorious, without material profit. So how did it become the spiritual profit offered to Krishna? That's the title of the chapter, Explanation of Devotional Service. So Kapila is explaining to Devahuti devotional service, or ultimately, as Prabhupada is taking the opportunity, pure devotional service, unmixed devotional service. No karma, again, it's the unmixed. So the result goes to Krishna. That is, Krishna should be pleased. That's bhakti. And then there's we'll do it one more time. Less than that, or in the direction of, but not complete yet, is the liberationist idea, not being entangled in the complexities of law, because besides man-made law, there's God-made law, and you do something, that's the action, and then there's a corresponding reaction. It's unavoidable. It's just a law of nature. You can't do nothing. Because we're active souls, we have to do something. And then there's implication in karma. So karma yoga is how to get free from that implication in karma without the essence of bhakti, or say the same thing in a different way. For karma yoga to be effective, there has to be some touch of bhakti. One can't, say it the other way, one cannot perform karma yoga without a touch of bhakti. But a touch of bhakti is different than Shuddha bhakti, or pure devotional service. But some bhakti is there, so the Lord is there, the receiver of the fruit of the activity. But so the purpose behind is the difference. One, I don't want the entanglement in karma. Or alternatively, I want that Krishna should be pleased. So duties that are prescribed are performed by a devotee. And then prescribed indicates something. This something is one's social position. According to one's same as the essence verse of the purpose of life and how to achieve it. That is, Stane statak shrutikatam tanavan manobir. Stane, stay, statak, stane, statak. Stay situated in your position. In what position? Your duty position, your social and other duties of life, determined by the modes of nature, etc. So we have a nature of past activities that brought us to our present position. That's karma. And then affinity for this mode, that mode. So the emphasis that Prabhupada is making in the purport is a standard Vaishnava, maybe particularly a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but a Vaishnava position. It doesn't matter. The Shudra, the Chandala, anyone in any position can be engaged in devotional service. There's no prior qualification or disqualification. Eligibility is just be a spirit soul. That's everybody. We're all spirit souls. So everyone's eligible. And now back to the principle, Krishna is to be pleased. So those in other modes of nature are commonly less inclined because of the modes of nature. But using these examples, the whole of Vrindavan, they're Vaishya community. They're not well educated. They're not Vedantists. They have an understanding. We hear them offer prayers to Krishna, and they're learned. Fundamentally, but where does that learning come from? For them, it's not studying Vedanta. It's from devotional service, and they get an understanding from their parents and the elders that give them that essential training, so that one who's a Vaishya, or one who's a Sudra, or one who's not a Brahmana, or from any position, by guidance, so that's not optional. Guidance is essential. It's essential. And with that proper guidance, then from any position, so proper guidance is imperative. And then the duty. Without attachment to the result. Without material profit. Interesting. Animitena, without attachment to the result. So nimitta means cause, and animitta means without a cause, no causeless. So what's the cause in performing activity? It's do something to get something. It's fruitive. And the something is me, knowledge or karma. So with animitta, without attachment to the result. The principle is simple. The application of the principle is fuzzy, or not so. We don't commonly, we don't keep our eye on that one. The animitta, without attachment to the result. Take our preaching. We do something to get a result. Otherwise, why are we doing something? We could do something else. Instead of that, we were going to do something. So why do the something that we're doing? Without attachment to the result. A misunderstanding or misapplication of that is, yatamat tatapat. whatever you do, it's okay, because it doesn't really matter what you do. What matters is something that's behind what you do, so whatever you do is okay. Whatever your ism is fine, because it doesn't really matter what your ism is. That's the an impersonal view. We have a personal view, but without profit. It's the principle is simple. It's bhakti. The purpose is, it's not a profit purpose. It's a Krishna should be pleased purpose, and that's the fundamental principle of transcendental life. That by definition, that's what bhakti is. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna should be pleased. Anushilanam, following the shila, the behavior or conduct of advanced souls. Following that, Krishna should be pleased. So there's the prescription. That's the indication of the qualified souls by their speech, by their conduct, by their example. And there's so many examples because there's so many personalities that are in the exalted position, and one might get confused. Like, which one am I supposed to follow? And then comes the refinement of consciousness. That is, although this individual and that individual and the third individual have a different personality, there's something in principle that's the essence of their life and their devotional life, and that is Krishna should be pleased. So focusing on that as we live our life in a world of diversity. Now, this is the spiritual diversity. Then there's the material diversity, but just the spiritual diversity. So we have different exalted souls that are in our scriptures, and maybe ideally in our life, certainly from the scriptures, ideal perfected souls that have character and conduct that's different, just like these four. And their behavior and conduct are different correspondingly. No, Prabhupada's a very simple way of saying this is from Krishna's vantage point, the Brahmana that's worshiping the deity and the person that's cleaning or sweeping the floor, from Krishna's vantage point, they're the same. Now, there's difference, of course, but the pleasure of Krishna principle is the same, depending upon the consciousness of the Brahmana's consciousness could be in the gutter, and the sweeper of the floor could be immersed in Krishna. So the conduct or the particular activity is not the criterion. It's the consciousness behind. That's the criterion. And putting it in simple languages without attachment to the result, without a purpose of achieving a result. If that's absent, then what's the purpose? Krishna should be pleased. However, endowed I am with the ability, some gift, you use that. To your capacity. And by practice, and practice, by that abhyasa, the Krishna may, if one sees one really wants to please him, then the ability through practice in Krishna decorating the effort to please him with some ability. And so someone can become an artist, or someone can become a musician, or someone can become a whatever, by decoration of that ability, so that the purpose of Krishna becoming pleased is made possible. Now, just on this point, supposing someone's not a devotee, there's a few people that aren't devotees, and they practice at something. And by practice, they become proficient, or practice makes perfect. But it's not perfect. If the practice is to become accomplished at something or other, what's imperfect is there's no real shelter. It's about selfish me, and then the selfish me qualification is lost by death, and then all of that acquisition is gone. There may be some carryover into the next life. Like child prodigies that are gifted at something, piano playing or something. But it's still on the material side, and it's still therefore bondage. The purpose of the human form of life is missed. So how to not miss the purpose of the human form of life from the outset? Try, so therefore it's repeated over and over. Krishna is to be pleased. There are different ways of saying, but that's the message. The Bhakti principle, that's what this chapter is. Explanation of devotional service. And so back to the first little phrase here. Execute prescribed duties which are glorious without material profit. It's a simple phrase. We're spending a lot of time explaining backwards and forwards a simple phrase. So without material profit means what? You just exchange the material profit for the spiritual profit. The spiritual merit goes to the person who engages in devotional service. And then again and again and again and again. That repetition of what I call it the Bhakti muscle, when your muscle gets strong. And then everything that you do with that Bhakti muscle is Bhakti laden. That becomes one's life. Or practice makes perfect. If the essence of the purpose behind the practice is that Krishna should be pleased, then your Bhakti muscle grows. The spiritual strength necessary to execute your activities in devotional service expand by Krishna's decorating that ability or effort. Then the second half, as much paragraph is dedicated to without excessive violence. The verse, without excessive violence, one should regularly perform one's devotional activities. So the eating behavior is the focus, but it can apply to anything. Here's one, not in relation to food, but Prabhupada made a remark. This is, for me at least, it's a celebrated statement. Prabhupada would regularly take morning walks. And when taking morning walks, two things, he would say, when you're walking unintentionally, you're walking on the sidewalk, there may be some ants or some creatures. Is that punishable? You're taking life. And then the answer is it's unavoidable. One may strive to avoid the ants and not step on the ants, but it's going to happen. So is that punishable? And his answer was, if you do it, if you're walking for Krishna, then it's not punishable. And if you're walking other than for Krishna, if it's that the consciousness behind, then it's punishable. Laws of nature are firm. Then similarly, and in Los Angeles, one should not walk across the lawn without walking for Krishna, because the grass and other living entities are, there's violence is being done. You walk across the lawn. Is it necessary? And the answer, of course, if there's a sidewalk, but we're on the sidewalk, somebody smothered something, living entities, to make the sidewalk. And then there's other living entities crawling somewhere on the sidewalk. So we're not Jains. We're Krishna Bhaktas. In service to Krishna, then incidental is incidental. I mean, incidental, it becomes not binding to the performer. Breathe. Living entities are coming and going, so don't breathe. So it's breathe for Krishna. Walk, live, exist. So our existence, the living entities are sacrificing their lives. There's not a denial. It's acknowledged. And therefore, not unnecessary violence, please. And then what's necessary? Survival, existing. You have to eat. You have to breathe. You have to, you move about. So, in service to Krishna, you do those things in service to Krishna. That's the adjustment, the Bhakti principle for these two, without striving for result and without unnecessary violence. Animitena. Let's see if there's some discussion. Interesting topic. Yes, Premananda.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Somebody may feel that, not just feel.
I'm going to get out my hearing aid. There's acoustics in this room, and my ears don't work well.
I can speak more close to the mic.
That will help. I think the earplugs may help, or this may also help. Go ahead.
Devotees generally...
Oh, much better.
Almost all the time, devotees feel we are doing this service for Krishna. That's a fact. Everybody feels, yeah. But when it comes to finally dealing with other devotees with whom they are working, so many conflicts, and just it's an ongoing thing. That yeah, I am doing my service sincerely, and I'm doing this definitely to please Krishna.
And
so because of that, I am in the clear. So many conflict comes with others. You should make your adjustment. Everyone thinks like that. As a result, so many people have so many clashes, even in doing a simple service, or adjustments, unwillingness to make some small adjustments, or you can clearly see that the problem is that it's a matter of cooperating and serving together. But this underlying feeling that I am doing this for Krishna, but that doesn't help to resolve the conflicts. Everybody is saying I'm doing it for Krishna.
Okay, I get the message now. What to do?
Yes.
Well, there's you want the first part that usually goes with the why and what to do.
Please comment.
It's ego. I'm at the center. That's ego. And then there's that one. And there's the conflict. It's the false ego. It's not the true ego, it's the false ego. So the true ego, I'm serving Krishna. I'm doing this for the purpose of serving Krishna. Otherwise I wouldn't, I'd be off doing something else. Purpose is that Krishna should be pleased. But really? Because when the principle is that Krishna should be pleased, now here I'm getting in a tangle with another person. Is Krishna pleased? Am I really thinking about, I'm doing this so that Krishna will be pleased? So, that's the why. And then what to do. That's one of the reasons why this, at least once a year seminar on the topic of Vaishnava etiquette. And I chose to speak, and the next time it comes around, I'm going to choose to speak on the same principle. That's respect. Because there are subtleties of respect. And it's so important that, what to do is respect. So how do you respect when, whatever the issue is, I'm trying to serve Krishna, and here's this other person that's making my purpose of serving Krishna disturbed, or whatever it is. The label and the identification of the conflict. So never leave the position of respect. As I'm trying to please Krishna, another person is trying to please Krishna in their way. And, rather than one-upping, I'm better at serving Krishna or something, to acknowledge that with respect, the position of the living entity, that as I am, they are, and then without departing from respect, how are we to work our way through a conflict? Gosh, it's like ISKCON Resolve. Conflict mediation resolution. It's like, it's a full-time job. And then sometimes it really escalates and it's awful. So what to do is my response, a starting point of a response is never depart from respect. And then acknowledging if something is done or said or combination that's causing my mind some difficulty, is it without ignoring the feeling, without ignoring the speech or behavior combination, don't depart from respect. And then, in a family or in a community or in a whatever, strive to see in this situation, in this dynamic, what's the best way to serve Krishna? And I may not have the answer to that question, but if you keep asking the question, you're more likely to get the answer to that question. Now, those are very simple. There's books written on this topic, and each situation is a little different, but we're speaking broad principle. Stay with not only my service is meant for the pleasure of Krishna, my interacting with this other devotee is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Now, how am I doing? On my report card, what score do I get? Am I doing well in pleasing Krishna in this interaction where there appears to be a conflict? then where do you take that situation or dynamic? Because that's the question you're asking. No, it starts with inside. If my inside is Krishna is to be pleased, that's where I go. And it may look to somebody, starting with myself, but then to somebody who is gifted, who is like Balaram performs this function again and again. He's a peacemaker. Or Krishna performed that function a number of times. He's a peacemaker. And sometimes situations are irascible. And then it means war. Open war. But that's not a place to go. But, so sometimes that happens for those who are military spirited. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking of situation X, Y, and Z, where it's war. And it becomes a war because, like Duryodhana, just stubborn obstinacy. That's it. There's no discussion. There's no respect. Respect is gone. It's now on the material platform. So that help the persons by good example and by coaching and by other methods to come again to the spiritual platform. But sometimes people are stuck. So from the get-go, the training in the Bhakti principle in fundamental ways is, it's the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure kind of answer. You want to go further with this?
A little more.
Huh?
A little more.
Okay.
Any practicing devotee who is a little bit thoughtful should know that escalating conflicts is not very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada or to Krishna. But, they may not be, I'm not sure if they are thoughtful. I mean, it's a thoughtless way of behavior, or may not be even willing to hear from anyone. But they are practicing devotees. And if it does not come from inside, within oneself, will it ever get resolved? Because it's an ongoing thing.
You're just, as far as I can gather, I caught about 50% of what you said. But essentially, some people are stuck and they keep going at it anyways. Yeah. And they think they're justified because, and they'll tell you why, because I'm justified because. And they can't back off of the position of the dynamic is that Krishna should be pleased because, after all, I want to please Krishna and this other person doesn't get it. And so I'm dug in. And I'm not interested in having, a wholesome look at the whole picture and how I may also be, my stubbornness may also be contributing to the difficulty. Then it goes on. It happens. I mean, identifying circumstances and giving labels, it goes on. And it's not good. So how do you have a wholesome community when it's like a popcorn machine and there's this one and that one and the other one? And look what Prabhupada did, the whole Hare Krishna movement with young people from uncultured backgrounds trying to become qualified. And there were conflicts. And they came to him. Many came to him. For what to do? You continue to set the standard and not just become a referee, resolving disputes by taking sides or bringing it to the court of law or something like that. But, it's the same principle of respect. You model it, and there's a person who's a qualified leader because they stay the course, even when there's turmoil. The storm comes, and they stay the course. Being respectful and drawing certain lines as is needed.
Maharaj, this is on the topic of non-violence. So it is my understanding that violence can be at 3 levels. There's violence at the level of the body, which is what Prabhupada is speaking of here with respect to not hurting other living entities.
Yeah.
And there's also violence at the level of our words. There's violence at the level of our mind.
Yeah.
And it's my experience that it's easier to be nonviolent at the level of our body than nonviolent at the level of our words.
Yes.
And it is easier to be nonviolent on the level of our words than our mind.
Yes.
So in Kali Yuga, we have this concession that our mental offenses don't count. And I need all the help I can get, so I'm happy to have any concessions that I can get. And I understand that it is my consciousness that determines my words, that determines my actions.
Yes.
So the very thing that we're given a concession for is actually the pivot, it seems, that we need to turn on to actually make it all the way, to go back to Godhead. It is our mental offenses that will keep us back. I'm wondering if that's a correct understanding.
Yeah, the correct understanding for sure. There's a sequence, like the verse from Bhagavad Gita. The senses are superior to dull matter. The mind is superior to the senses. The intelligence is superior to the intelligence is superior to the mind, and above all is the soul. So the conditioned, less than perfect living entity is going to make mistakes on all those levels in differing degrees, and we want to control the mind because it drives speech and drives our behaviors. So it's this spiritual purification necessity. And that spiritual purification is that Krishna is to be pleased. That's the Bhakti principle. That's our place of shelter. And that takes cultivation. And how you're going to cultivate it, using your example, so you of your own personal life, let's say, and trying to teach principles to others that say at least that they like to learn the principle. It's purification on the soul platform, but then it's aligning the subtle, the medium, and the more gross, aligning that with the spiritual principle. And that's bhakti. And practice and model it and role play and learn and go through the exercises to become not just civilized follower of Dharma, of Varnashram Dharma, but civilized plus that fully dedicated to Krishna's service. So it's a cultivation on a spiritual, starting from the spiritual platform, because the soul is superior to the mind and intelligence, and the senses. And with patience, this is in part, response to Premananda's question, but with patience to the process and dedication to the process of aligning things with that Krishna should be pleased in those 3 platforms. The subtle drives the gross. And while there may not be offense for a subtle offense, may not be a responsibility or reaction for a subtle offense, mind offense, wait a while and it comes out. Because the subtle drives the gross. Others?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is in continuation with Premananda Mataji's question. I'm trying to connect it with, in the early part of your class, you mentioned Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Could it be that, yes, I am performing an act of service to Krishna in my services,
yes,
and I feel that this is going to bring out a better result, and then I conflict with somebody else who thinks it can be done differently?
Yes.
Is that Karma Yoga principle? And is there a higher principle that should be applied?
That's a nice way to look at it. It's a simple way to look at it. But the bottom line answer that I gave is acting to please Krishna isn't just, I want to dress the deity this way and someone else wants to dress the deity that way, and we're in conflict. I recently heard this on somebody that's a newer devotee doing deity worship, and they find there's conflicts even on the altar, where there's brahmanas doing deity service, and there's conflicts. I mean, they didn't give the example, but the principle. So then it's not just that Krishna is to be pleased; it's and the action or the behavior, but the interpersonal part is that Krishna is to be pleased. And if I'm contributing or I'm participating in something that's not pleasing to Krishna, I have to step back and introspect and think, in what way am I contributing to that which is not pleasing to Krishna on an interpersonal level, rather than pointing the finger and saying it's over there? It's because, generally speaking, conflicts are two-way, not a one-way. So that is the answer I gave her, and the answer, your option is, it's also fine, but then there's the interpersonal. How do you get on the other side of that Karma Yoga principle into the Bhakti Yoga principle? The social interaction is an essential part of resolving natural differences that exist. This one is different than that one by nature's design. We don't want it to be all alike. I forget where my memory is poor, but there was someone, my memory goes, Professor O'Grady from Ireland. Prabhupada was being interviewed by this somebody, and he was saying, you have members from all different backgrounds, and you must run into conflicts because of cultural differences and language differences, and so how do you deal with it? I mean, something like that was the question. And Prabhupada gestured to a vase of flowers that was on the table and said, just like the vase of flowers, it's not one kind of flower with one fragrance or one color. That would be boring, or it wouldn't be as beautiful. But here's diversity, but unity in diversity. So then that's the principle. And then the application of the principle is beyond Premananda, is beyond I'm doing this that Krishna should be pleased. And then here's another person they think that they're doing something that Krishna should be pleased, and we're clashing with one another. So the Krishna should be pleased principle within the existence of diversity is I have to go above the conflict of I want to serve Krishna this way and they want to serve Krishna that way, and we've come together and we're at odds with each other. It happens. It's not a new phenomena. So a mature person is able to go beyond being entrenched in I'm right, and therefore the other person's not right. Or their respect disappears. And it goes on and on and on, indefinitely. Okay. Someone else. We'll have some we got on this track. Let's see if we can get on another track. Anything? Srila Prabhupada Ki. Right.